before we go into the details, let's take a quick look at what Michael Dell, said in 2022. I'm looking at this article from CRN over here, and the headline reads, Michael Dell chides return to office CEOs. You're doing it wrong. If you are counting on forced hours spent in a traditional office to create collaboration and providing a feeling of belonging with your organization, you're doing it wrong, Dell said. Very interesting. Now, if you look down a little bit, he says that even several of my fellow tech CEOs have pushed to get their teams back into the offices to engage more fully or be a more visible presence. If you are counting on forced hours spent in a traditional office to create collaboration and providing a feeling of belonging within your organization, you're doing it wrong. Interesting. Dell also said that he isn't making these decisions based on his own feelings, but rather it was grounded in our culture and based on the facts of our internal data. Ultimately, we have committed to allow team members around the globe to choose the work style that best fits their lifestyle. Okay, great. So in 2022, Michael Dell himself said that they were all in on employee flexibility, allowing employees to work from home if they chose to. Now let's take a look at what's going on today in 2024. Dell to color code staff based on how hybrid they really are in RTO push. Sources slam aggressive back to school grading system as HR vows to track VPN use and bad swipes. Wow. Okay. So what's going on? Dell has told workers it'll track the on-site presence of hybrid employees. It's going to use bad swipes, VPN monitoring, and it's even going to implement a color coding system. Now, Jeff Clark is one of the executives who's running Dell, and the employees are calling it a return to grade school initiative. Wow. So basically, they're creating 4 levels, and they're going to color code these based on how well they're meeting the goal of being in the office 39 days a quarter. Interesting. Now, this is especially interesting is that those who do not meet the attendance requirements will have their status escalated up the ladder to Jeff Clark. Wow, who's basically leading Dell at this time. It's going to go all the way to the top. And there's a bit of a side remark here saying, oh, being a hall monitor trumps growing revenue. So let's see what the Dell spokesperson said. They said, we shared with our team members that we updated the hybrid work policy. If folks are hybrid, they've got to be in the office at least 39 days per quarter. So that's about 3 days a week. And they've taken a bit of a change now. They're saying we believe in-person connections paired with a flexible approach are critical. Now, this is a bit of doublespeak because, of course, if you're mandating folks come into the office for 3 days a week, you're not actually being flexible. But they claim it'll drive innovation and value differentiation, which is, of course, very different from what Michael Dell himself said just a couple years ago. Now, I've actually met Michael Dell a couple times. We've basically just said hi. I haven't worked with him in detail. And he seemed like a nice guy, polite and friendly. But, this just goes to show you that you have to be very careful about what people say because what they're talking about changes a lot based on what's really good for them and their business. Now, let's see exactly what they're going to do. They're going to get ratings based on 4 colors. A blue flag means you're all good and you have consistent on-site presence. A green flag means you have regular on-site presence. A yellow flag indicates you have some on-site presence, and a red flag indicates limited on-site presence. Now, it's interesting here that it seems like even managers aren't on the same page about the consequences of the tiers. So what they're trying to do here is basically create a hierarchy of those who are more loyal to the company and those who aren't. And even managers, it seems, don't know exactly what to do. But there is this big stick of a threat saying, hey, if you're not in the office a lot, your name is going to go all the way up to Jeff Clark. So they're serious about this at the high level. At the middle management level, it looks like, well, it's a show, as they say. And, it's not uncommon. Unfortunately, a lot of times middle managers are just caught in the middle from these directives that come from the very top levels. They come on down, the middle managers are asked to deal with it, and they try to do their best. And often it's just very, very difficult. Now, what's interesting here is that some folks are characterizing this as a stealth layoff, and it will particularly affect women because they're more likely than male colleagues to work remotely. Dell currently has about 35% of its staff that are women, and for managers, it's a bit lower at 29%. So, how are these companies actually surveilling their employees to figure out who's coming into the office? Dell is tracking badges and VPN connections. Wow. So they're looking at using. So Dell is tracking badges and VPN connections. So with VPN, the company can know whether you're logging in from a network elsewhere and doing your work that way. They're tracking everything electronically that employees are doing. And they think that's in response to the official numbers about how many staff members chose to remain remote. Basically, what's happening here is that a lot of people during the pandemic were told, hey, you can work remotely. They loved hybrid or remote work. And now they really don't feel like going back to the office is the most productive use of their time. But employers are having a challenge getting people back into the office. So now Dell already laid off 13,000 people since the start of 2023. And it's interesting here that they had 120,000 employees that they claimed in their filing. But this publication, the Register, says that their internal workforce figures exceed 150,000. Now, they've tried to clarify with Dell why internally they say they have 150,000 people and externally they say they have 120,000, but Dell has not responded to this. I think basically what's happening here is that the Register, this publication, is implying that here's evidence that Dell is actually ratcheting down on employees so that many of them just kind of get frustrated and quit on their own. And so they don't have to lay them off. So what's really happening here? Well, let's take a recap. Back in 2022, the tech job market was highly competitive. That means employees had more leverage. They could easily move to another job if they wanted to. They could just quit and say, hey, I'm going over to that big tech company. But, companies at that time said they were on the employee side. They valued their employees. They wanted to give them flexibility and all the perks because basically they wanted to retain employees in a highly competitive job market. Now, of course, when the job market changed and the companies have more leverage because employees are afraid everybody's laying off in tech and they can't easily find another job. Now companies know that they have the upper hand and they're responding accordingly. Now when you see companies and employers' true colors and what they really care about. This is why it's very important that you read between the lines and really understand the difference between what people say and what companies say and the reality of the situation. You have to understand your company's culture. Do they really value work from home? Frankly, what companies really care about is the business contribution. So what they care about is the top line and the bottom line. And the rest, well, it'll change like the wind changes, depending on what's best for their business. That's why it's very important for you to stay on top of things, to read between the lines, and stay savvy. Until next time.